topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Churchill said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Kevin Hallinan believes that certainly applies to business. Welcome to Winning Business Radio, here at W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. And now, your host, Kevin Hallinan.
Thank you, everybody, for joining in today. I'm Kevin Hallinan, and welcome back to Winning Business TV and Radio on W4CY.com. We're streaming live on Talk4TV.com, and of course, we're streaming live on Facebook, and that's at Winning Business Radio. And we're available in podcast form after the live show on just about whatever platform you use to find your podcast content. That's YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, again, wherever you listen. The mission of Winning Business Radio and TV, as regular viewers and listeners know, is to offer insights and advice to help people avoid the mistakes of others, to learn best practices, the how-tos, the what-tos, the what-not-tos, to be challenged and hopefully to be inspired by the successes of others. Who are those others? They're consultants, coaches, advisors, authors, founders, owners, entrepreneurs, people with expertise. Today's an attorney. But, you know, virtually every successful person I've ever had a chance to talk to has had some form of failure in their lives and careers. So every week I say, we all have to get our knees skinned once in a while. I'm driven to keep those scrapes from needing major surgery. Let's endeavor to learn from history so we don't repeat it. I've spent the better part of my career equipping businesses to grow, from solopreneurs to small and medium-sized businesses, all the way up to the Fortune 50. And I've seen a lot of those companies win, and to varying degrees, I've seen some fail. And I've had the opportunity to rub elbows with some of the highest performing people around and with some who probably should have found other professions. In my own businesses, I've had lots of success, but some failures too. So I like to think I've learned a lot from those experiences. So you're going to hear from me, my opinions and insights, but anyone who knows me will tell you that I have a hard time staying quiet. So more importantly than me, you're going to hear from experts, those consultants, coaches, advisors, authors, founders, owners, entrepreneurs, attorneys. Today, my guest is attorney Nick Lipresti, corporate and business transactional lawyer with Lipresti Law. Here's his bio. Nicholas Lipresti is a transactional attorney based near Boston, concentrating his practice in corporate, business, commercial lending, and finance law. His practice focuses on structuring, negotiating, and closing joint ventures, as well as mergers and acquisitions, and that's both buyers and sellers. Nick is also known for his expertise in asset dispositions, securities issuances and other capital raises, recapitalizations, restructurings, buyouts, and takeouts, as well as various forms of business and real estate financing, ranging from venture and private capital, I said that wrong, from venture and private equity to asset and property-backed bank financings. He's sought after for his expertise in negotiating term sheets, letters of intent, purchase, asset and equity agreements, profit-sharing plans, operating agreements, buyer-seller agreements, shareholder agreements, employment agreements, as well as confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements for business. Nick has significant experience preparing private placement memoranda and other offering documents for equity issuances and syndications, as well as compliance with federal and state blue sky securities laws. Getting ahead of myself there. He also represents many commercial lenders and borrowers in connection with commercial real estate financings, asset-based financings and lines of credit, project financings, tax credit financings, subordinate, I know it's a lot, but we're going to get to this, subordinated and senior debt transactions, convertible preferred equity structured finance, and loan assumptions. Nick regularly counsels financial institutions and borrowers in the drafting and negotiation of loan documentation, including loan agreements, notes, mortgages and deeds, security pledges, guarantees, and subordination agreements. Providing outside general counsel, he works with closely held businesses from startups to established companies, as well as nonprofits and entities in workout situations. Nick supports clients with organizational and equity planning, strategic advice, resolution of conflicts among owners, executive employment matters, and ongoing corporate counseling. Nick earned his BA in political science and government with a minor in classical civilizations from William and Mary, his JD or law degree from the Columbus School of Law at the Catholic University of America, and his master's of laws in taxation from the Georgetown University Law Center. He and his wife, Kristen, live in Upton, Mass. with their daughter, Lily, who's 10, their son, James, who's 8, their 2 rescue dogs, Cody and Beast, and their 3 axolotls. Nick, welcome to Winning Business Radio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And
No.
I just heard a lot about myself in that.
Do I do all that? Well, I appreciate the time. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you carving out about an hour here. Let's start with family. Tell us a little bit about Kristen.
Kristen, she's my wife, and the reason I'm up here in New England now. Met her in college and actually summer abroad in Sicily. So,
nice. Oh wow,
go back many years at this point.
And Lily and James.
Yep, those are the ones that keep me young and or feeling old, depending on the day.
Yeah,
but yeah, they're my 2, and the reason I do everything. Again, family time is great, and also the reason we're in New England to raise them, as my wife always wanted to come home for that.
That's awesome. So I'm a dog guy. But don't let me offend anybody. I want to hear more about the axolotls. 3 axolotls. Tell us what that is, what they are.
I did. Okay. It's kid driven. So I did not know about them before the kids. There must be in a TV show or a cartoon or something, because I wasn't aware of them, but they exist. They're real. It's like a salamander with a tadpole tail is the best I can describe it. And they're like fish, but you can't put them with fish because fish will actually bully them. And they don't like the light, so they kind of like to be in the dark. They're interesting animals, but the kids love them. They look like cartoon characters, and they
good
eat
pets
birds that my wife does not like, that we have to keep outside, and they're family pets.
That's awesome. And I happened to look them up because I was curious. They're used in research because they can regenerate tails, ears, whatever, limbs, right?
Yeah, again, the salamander tail. We haven't thankfully suffered any of that in our house, but they're crazy little things. They got neck beards, which I just find are hilarious because they move in the water.
That's awesome. All right, so you grew up in the D.C., Virginia area, right?
Yep, the man of kind of the East Coast. My parents are New Yorkers that went down to D.C., and that's where I was born and raised, in Fairfax County.
Cool. What was it like to grow up there?
Interesting. I thought, again, as we all did, we thought it was normal growing up because it was just the way. But now looking back on it,
but even though you weren't a Mandalorian,
not a Mandalorian, and well, I walked into
little reference there. This is the way. Anyway, go ahead.
But looking back on it is different. It's different from New England, and it was rural suburbia. I mean, again, my parents were New Yorkers, went down to DC for work, ended up settling in the suburbs, which was, again, at that time, being completely redeveloped into suburbs, and it just has continued since then, and even after I left. And it's different because there's no central town feel. Again, it's rolling suburbia, and I, to be honest, I like it up here.
So, did you bring your sports allegiances with you? Where do those? Are they?
I have to, and the Commanders are making it easier this year.
They are this year
again, and I'm old enough that I remember '92 when the Redskins, now Commanders, were good, and then it was a brutal winter of about 30 so years. Still follow the Nationals. We'll see. Wizards. I still can't love that name. And I don't know where they're going. But we got the Commanders, and we'll see.
So my wife and I are doing the MLB ballpark tour. I may have talked to you about that at one point or another, but we saw the Nationals 2 years ago.
Beautiful park. Beautiful area.
It really is. Yeah. What made you decide to attend William and Mary and to major in poli-sci and government? And then I'm curious about classical civilizations too. I think it's pretty cool. I'm not, some people laugh at minors, whatever, but I'm curious about that as well.
So William and Mary, again, growing up in Northern Virginia and blessed with a great in-school or in-state school system. So again, I love my parents. They're very clear. You can go anywhere you want in the country, but if you're going to pay over state tuition. So that heavily impacted it. And so I looked at the general three. Again, I don't even know how college admissions work. I applied to University of Virginia. I got waitlisted. I got applied to Virginia Tech, which I got in. My older sister went there, and I was a big fan of the football program at the time. And went to William and Mary, and it probably goes into political science and the rest of the conversation. It was the area and the history. It's just a lovely area. It wasn't too small, wasn't too big.
One of the oldest schools in the nation, right?
Yeah, I mean it's right there. I think they said 7 presidents studied there.
Wow.
Again, funny back in the day, no one had really graduated. You just went to college, learned until you thought you were done, and then you were good and you left. Different these days, but yeah, great area. Liked it there, and being from DC, and then the courses with government that kind of just led to. Didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, but thought I was going to go into government, work on Capitol Hill when I was a kid. Again, just being a political nerd.
Well, you had some cool internships, and I want to get to those in a little bit, but you did have some of that experience, which is cool.
Yeah, so I had some experience, and unfortunately it was enough to realize that it wasn't for me. So again, I love the opportunities I got there, but Capitol Hill, and this was again 20 years ago, it was starting to change from what historically had been. And again, you think kind of collegial environment. Again, you work on what you can together, respectful disagreements. And I guess the average politician, you would say, on both sides was more of a flag bearer, for his or her cause. Yeah, it started to shift to more kind of a celebrity culture where people cared more about who was coming to see them, what they got on. And again, this is 20 years ago, so not a comment on anything regular, but it was enough to say I'll go somewhere else, and law school was the next option.
So yeah, that was my next question. When did you know you wanted to be an attorney?
When I graduated law school, it was pretty clear because when I went into law school, or at least planned to go into law school, taking the LSATs, the entrance exam, was still government was on my mind, and a lot of people on Capitol Hill went to law school. So it was kind of just a logical step. And then I realized in law school that I didn't want to go into the government or Capitol Hill. And then I had to figure out in law school what type of lawyer I wanted to be. And that was part of the journey.
And was Catholic University of America a choice because you got in, or did you apply there specifically? You wanted to go there? What was that about?
Got in and was looking to stay in the DC area, and thought really again my whole career would be down there. Foolish me. So got in and went straight from undergrad to law school, which actually I don't recommend.
Really?
For anyone out there, not that if any kids are listening to this, is take a gap year. Go be a paralegal somewhere before you decide to commit to the school, and then probably at least the next decade of your life to pay off the debts associated with it.
Is that your biggest motivator for that advice, or was it the grueling nature?
It was the grueling nature, and it's one of those things. I'd say med school, but again, I didn't have that. Where it's once you step on the train, it's hard to get off. It's 3 years. It's very intense, and again, there's only so many options, and the market's tough. So it's not, I guess you can't just kind of be a babe in the woods anymore and it'll work out. The industry itself is tough. So always get some experience and see if you like it before you decide to dive headfirst into it.
Last question before the first break. You also got your Master's of Taxation. What was behind, if I'm saying that correct, Masters of Laws focusing on taxation?
Yeah, LLM is how we say it.
And what was the motivation for that? What was that plan a part of?
That again was my career has been what's been planned and then what actually happened. So when I went to law school, decided not to go, wasn't going to go in Capitol Hill politics, and not that I was ever going to run for office or anything, but just be over there. I said, all right, I'm going to go to law school. And then, not blaming my dad, but kind of his insight was working for the government is and he did it when he was younger, is some of the best training he ever got. So the idea was go work in the Chiefs General's Counsel office. Again, you're in DC, still is there, and get training. Unfortunately, I came out of law school in one of the recessions, including a legal market recession. So it was very tight at that time, but that was the plan. And so LLM, in tax was going to be kind of a culmination of tax analysis as well as business.
Thank you. All right. We're going to be back in just a minute. Everybody will be back with Nick Lipresti in about 60 seconds.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Have you ever dreamt of being on the radio? Well, now is your chance. Be a radio show guest on the #1 ranked internet radio station and promote you and your business for free. Yes, you heard it, free. Business advertising right here on W4CY.com. Call 561-506-4031 now to get booked on one of our shows. That's 561-506-4031. Get your free advertising now.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
We are back with Nick Lipresti, partner of Lipresti Law. All right, I want to take you through some of I won't go through every early position, but you had some cool internships, and I want to ask kind of what you learned, what were your key takeaways. You interned for Senator John Warner, on the national security team. Talk about that briefly, and what did you take away from that experience?
That was a great experience. Again,
and by the way, quick interruption for the audience. Internships are brief. Go ahead.
Yes, it was for the summer, and again, the late Senator Warner, and he was an elder statesman by the time the senior senator, and it was a great experience because he was very respected. So in terms of, again, you're such a peon of an intern at that, but getting to kind of be close to what's going on and seeing the people that he interacted with was, again, for a political nerd, was really cool. And I mean, especially at that time, it was an interesting environment. Again, he in the same building, I remember from Senator Ted Kennedy, again, another rest in peace, but it was when he was another elder statesman and a legend. And what I always remember about him was in the Russell building, there were long hallways because then the offices would be off the halls, and he'd been around enough that he had his 2 dogs, so he would walk, and so whenever you saw him, he'd have the dogs and a staffer too. And he'd have that again, older gait. So it was a great experience. And you'd like to think again that how things worked in terms of the government and the country and being there, and especially at interesting times. Again, national security team. There was a flare up in Israel, a war during that time. So there was political pressure.
Also like 5 years post 9/11. So everything was pretty raw still.
Yeah. And so it was a great time to be there and learn, and again, get experience. I mean, life's about the journey and getting experiences. And that was a great one. Again, realizing that it wasn't going to be a calling, but at least getting to have that and move on.
And then the first of your 2 judicial internships, first with Superior Court of District of the DC Court, Honorable Lynn Leibovitz. Talk about that experience.
So that was great. I'm not a big fan of classroom learning. Just again, that's not how I learn the best. Not that it's bad. It's just we all learn different ways. So I learned better on the job through experience. So in law school and with Judge Leibovitz at the time, I don't even know if I was getting credit, but it was going in and helping answer a couple emails, being an assistant to the law clerk. but it was getting some experience on what the law is. First year of law school is a very brutal process. It breaks you down. And so kind of getting out that it's more than just the classroom was important to me. And DC, the big courthouse, not too far away. And she was on the civil docket at the time, which to me was humorous because I believe she's still on the bench. Great lady. She career criminal attorney. I think she was a prosecutor. So that was where she liked to be. And when I worked or assisted, she was on the civil docket, which again it's not criminal, it's lawsuits among parties, not the state. So it's just, I don't want to say it just didn't interest her as much. It wasn't her passion. So it was funny. I remember at the time, one of the court cases, it was between two owners or an owner and a former owner of a Georgetown townhouse and down in DC, very nice area of the city. I think probably 8 figures or so of a price tag. The two parties were arguing over some drapes and a chandelier about whether it was fixtures or not. And again, everyone can do it, but I want to say the value might have been $25,000. What they were fighting over. I think, and again, it was going on for a while. So that by the time I even came in, I think each side had probably spent over $250,000 in legal fees in process, and it was frustrating for the judge to see that because not a waste of time, but again,
that's where emotion got the better of those two parties, right?
Yes. And but again, it was learning how things work in the docket and it's civil. So if you had an issue, if you needed to get paid, sued, how that worked. And again, it was another experience where I took from that I didn't want to be a litigator. And again, not that there's anything wrong with it, but it was an experience and I appreciated it and just realized it wasn't for me. So it was a great, I got to where I am in law school, didn't know where I was going to be doing this. It was kind of, things started to fall away. And the best way to kind of...
That's a good experience to know what you don't want to do as much as you find out what you do.
And so I spent the first 2 years probably of law school starting to jettison whole practice areas that, again, nothing wrong with, but just not for me.
Let's see. I want to go to, actually, you had a summer internship, another internship. I'll skip those if you don't mind, unless there's something specific you want to share. McCandlish and Lillard and McGuire Woods. But I want to get to the other judicial internship, Superior Court of D.C., the Honorable John Bailey Jr.
Yeah, so that was, again, back in D.C. Superior Court. And this time it was on the criminal docket. So a completely different experience because in the criminal docket, the plaintiff is always the government. And the defendant is always an individual that's been charged with the crime. So,
and it was DC, but it was state level, not federal.
Yes, DC. So local, not
local.
Right? Yeah, well, it is.
I know they're not a state.
DC. So yeah, now it's talking circles. But yes, it was local, but criminal. So again, you're looking at situations, violence, drug related, and appreciation of it, and again, how society works, and because when you're looking at a criminal docket like that, a lot of it, there's not murder and again the big crimes. It's a lot of, again, just processing crimes. Again, a lot of drug related, and it's sad to see half of it.
Yeah, you're seeing people at their worst in those situations.
They're worse, and then some people, even young people that you almost say never had a chance. So it was a poignant moment in my career of learning, and there's the good thing is at that level there is a lot of assistance of people and organizations that try to help where they can, especially when federal governments kind of fall short. But it gives you an appreciation, and that life is a little different than, we'll say, Law and Order, which again, great TV show, but doesn't exactly show how true it is.
What it's not all settled in an hour?
Not all
less commercials,
not as easy, and everything, but there's ups and downs, and it's hard. And again, even with something, you got to prove it. And sometimes, again, it's one of those things you know it, but to prove it is a different story. And again, if you can't prove it, there's serious ramifications.
And then law clerk Jackson and Campbell, again, short term, because that you were still in school at that point?
Yeah, that was still kind of like the other legal internships, getting out there and just getting more experience and finding each one. Again, McCandlish Lillard, we don't have to spend much time on it, but that was my first summer associate. And I spent, again, civil litigation, working with lawsuits, and then also doing family law. Realized very quickly, again, family law was not for me. Again, another important part of, and there's lawyers that do it, but at the time I was reading and notating impact statements by 10, 12-year-olds about their parents' divorce. And again, you need to do it. Unfortunately, it has to be done. But I knew it would chew me up in a year, maybe. It was not going to be my career. So again, the people that do that are necessary and have that makeup. But I knew I didn't. So it was, again, kind of the jettisoning of areas, and then working in McGuire Woods, doing some tax work. So again, it was kind of sticking your toe in different ponds and seeing where you're going to go. Because even as an attorney, there's a lot of different types of attorneys, and your career, your lifestyle can be very different depending what you end up as.
Well, it's like if you don't play the right music for your unborn child, it determines their future. The right or wrong internship can. No, just kidding.
Just as important.
All right. Then you were an associate for this guy, Peter Lipresti. I'm guessing there's a connection there. And that was a 4-year. That was a professional legal position.
Yep, that was just associate, and that was again learning how to be an attorney. And coming out of law school in a recession, the legal market was pretty tough, and so I was thankful for that. And to have a job, and again, to appreciate that. And again, that's a lesson in itself, coming out of law school.
Uncle or?
Oh, no, work with my dad.
Oh, that was your dad. Okay.
Yes, that was my dad. And so being able to, again, never really designed to be father and son job. And again, it was firm, and it was only for a time. But again, at that point, having a job and being able to maintain, and then as the market opened up, even being able to apply from having a job was much different than applying from not having a job. So again,
that's true.
It seems almost like a lifetime ago, but it was, again, as a professional, a different time, and kind of scary when, again, you want to work, you know you can do the job, but sometimes your options are limited by what's out there.
What was the practice area or areas?
I've always done corporate work, working with businesses, business owners. Again, started to do some tax work as I had my LLM. I realized a couple of years in that I'd be one heck of a tax issue spotter, but I was going to focus on corporate tax. It's something, it's consuming. There's a lot of changes. You need to stay current. You can't dabble in it. And I knew that I was going to not be fully there. So I still, like I said, I'm a great issue spotter, but now I focus in corporate business world, which is really helping business owners, businesses, again, meet their goals, make money, and stay out of trouble and losing money.
All right, which is a good segue. We'll take our second commercial break. We'll come back and we'll dig into the current work you're doing now. We'll be back in 1 minute with Nick Lipresti.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
The YP.com website is your local search engine. If you're looking for a good restaurant, it can help you find the right one nearby with ratings and reviews. Or if your car breaks down, you can use the YP app to find the closest repair shop. Or maybe you're just looking for something to do on a Friday night. Well, it has great local coupons for all sorts of things in your area. No matter what, when, or where, if you're looking for something, YP Local Search can help you find it. So go to YP.com or download the app to search local, find local, and save local.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
We're back with Nick Lipresti, partner at Lipresti Law. So you make your way from Virginia back to Worcester, Fletcher Tilton. Spent about a year there. Tell us a little bit about that and your key takeaway.
Funny. So my key takeaway that I came up, that was a contract job, and as you said, out in Worcester, and that was my realizing that New England is not home moment. And again, great people there, great firm, but it was the moment, and the big takeaway or the light going off was that I'm an entrepreneurial attorney in regards to, again, I'm an attorney, but going out, making business, growing that book.
Yeah, attorneys are business people. They better be, right?
We're service providers. We have to be.
Right.
And that experience and that model was not entrepreneurial. It was just, I don't want to say an old boys and girls network, but it was very insular and established. So
parochial.
Yes. And so I knew that structure, and then probably that community was not really the best for me, because I'd fail left and right in terms of, it was clear, especially in the professional service provider world of attorneys, accountants, insurance, that there were generations at play and of locals, and that to kind of break into that as an outsider would be difficult and probably not the best use of time.
But that was your ability to get back, as you said, family reasons, not back. For your wife to get back.
That's how we got back. And again, we got back, and that was the lesson, and which I took from after that with my next job. And part of the reason I
Darrow Everett,
and was at that firm is they're very entrepreneurial. So
that's when you and I met, when you were at Darrow Everett.
Yes. Yeah. Years, a lifetime ago. And again, looking there, even as an associate attorney, where generally you're not looked at to get business or go out in business, they actually had a weekly requirement to go out in the community. And again, the expectations were pretty low, but you have to learn, and you had to start somewhere. And that was exactly what I was looking for, because when I came up north, and again, especially after the Fletcher Tilton experience, I realized, not being a New Englander, there's nothing wrong with it, but being from somewhere, whether it's a college, a town, that you could tap into that community for contacts. And that's how we start to build a network. And then from there, you built a book of business out of that network. And that was what was important for me, was I had to build a network because I had nothing. And so being the entrepreneurial lane was very helpful. And that's what I started at that time. And again, being an attorney and working on that and developing my practice there, but also understanding about networking, building a network, and realizing that to be successful, especially as an attorney and as a service provider at a certain amount of time or a certain place in your career, it's just not enough to be proficient at the work that's being put in front of you. You have to also bring in work for yourself and potentially others if you're looking to continue to climb the career, or if you're looking to put yourself in a position, as they said, the golden rule is gold. And if you can bring in a lot of money, you'll be able to dictate your terms.
So then you made your way to, this is interesting, Lipresti Law, but Greater Boston. Is that an office of the DC firm, or is that a new firm?
So it is an office of the firm, and this now goes back to COVID. And in end of 2019, I knew that my time at Darrow Everett was coming to an end, solely for the fact that the man behind the firm, Zach Darrow, I want to say 2017, had moved to Florida and was spending more time out of the Miami practice. So fast forward a couple of years, the Miami office had grown a lot, as he had been down there a lot, which makes sense. There was also a New York office, a Providence, Rhode Island, which was kind of the headquarters, and then Mass. Mass was not really kind of mission critical. So while, again, knock on wood, I was doing well, I was growing.
Mm-hmm.
It was clear I was growing in a point where the firm wasn't going to be interested at. So looked around, actually in January of 2020, started a partnership with a couple former colleagues, which crashed and burned extremely quickly. So now end of March, we're now COVID.
We're all locked down. Yeah. Yeah.
But no one's working at that point. So it was really the question of, do I start my own firm at that moment, or do I open up a satellite office of an existing firm, which is what I did, because in terms of starting a business, again, professional licensure as an attorney, it would have been a lot more hurdles, especially at a time when people weren't answering the phone. It was, again, not until maybe June or so of 2020 when people realized we're going to have to work through COVID.
Yeah, it was only going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, two weeks, maybe a little bit more, than the world will reset, and that is not what happened. So, so Lipresti Law is again founded in 2003, and it's my dad's firm. It was never meant to be a father and son, and it's not now. If anything, it's viewed as a kind of, think of it as an expense sharing relationship. And so I came on in 2020, and then ended up taking over operations in 2022, and now still working with my dad, which is great. He's in what he calls his glide path.
Nice.
So he's on his way to retirement at his own pace.
But it sounds like you guys have a working relationship, unlike I've seen in a lot of other, quote, family businesses where all due respect, dad sticks around too long.
Yes, no, and the dynamic is different because it's an expense sharing situation. Again, he has his world, his clients, I have mine. So it's not, again, you think of the traditional family business where there's the kind of the turning over the keys of whether, again, it's a physical building, or again, kind of all the clients that were one generation are now coming yours. And again, there will be some clients, and there are some clients that shared, but generally, he's got his stuff and I've got mine, which from a pressure and intensity purpose is kind of great, because it isn't. It's very low pressure.
It gives him, it sounds to me like it gives him all kinds of freedom to chart his path whenever he wants to step away. It's not going to negatively impact you.
Exactly. And the business
he's in control of that. You're in control of that.
So so it's fun. And cool. The only trouble times are when there's technology upgrades. And then that hits him, and then there's usually a couple emails, a Zoom to figure something out. But other than that, he's usually pretty happy about the arrangement.
But the expletives don't make the filter, though, right?
No. And again, we have a consultant for our outsourced IT, which again, so poor for them is they're usually the tip of the spear. But again, all
right, so let's dig into the work that you do. It's all business focused. You're working with your clients that probably range in size and industry. Give us sort of it's probably not fair to say thumbnail. Give us a description of the types of clients that you work with.
We work with a variety. And again, from small to someone setting up their own company and needs some basic guidance that, again, could probably maybe pay a vendor online to do it, but in terms of learning and process, that's not the best.
Yeah, C Corp, S Corp, LLC, right? What's the right choice for that entity? Partnership,
exactly, and some basic documents. Right now, it's easy access to a lot of information, which in itself becomes a problem because there's right information, there's wrong information, there's over information, and so again, we say nothing's too small, and then we work all the way, again, through operations, ongoing matters with owners, transactions, up to medium large companies, which again have hundreds of employees. Again, top line revenue can go into tens or hundreds of millions. But at the end of the day, the common thread is in terms of ownership, there's a defined ownership group, and we're not near anything towards public or that. That is a different end of the ecosystem. So we work with little to, again, Main Street, Boston, or anywhere downtown that, again, appreciates what we do here, which is working with business owners, and that's what we focus on. but without what we say is the downtown fee. Again, our goal is to kind of slip in and provide the value.
Yep.
Since this is what we do, we've done it our whole careers. And while we don't have the bench and some would say the name recognition of some of those larger firms, again, we're there when you don't want to pay $1,500, and we're happy to help you out at a reasonable rate. But sometimes you do need those firms and those matters. And again, we'll be honest that's not us.
But you have a deep referral network to know those guys.
Yes, if it ever gets that big, if you've got a company that hits the rocket and you need to do an IPO, it's never going to be me, but I'll get you to someone that's going to be more than happy to help you. And again, they're probably going to be about $1,500 an hour. But that's what it is.
If that's what the matter requires, right? And so it's really anything law related, and there's a lot of law baked into business: purchasing a piece of real estate, selling a piece of real estate, partnerships.
Most paperwork. Again, I joke that I'm a paperwork nerd. In terms of a company, if you're signing something, there's a reason. And again, you're either looking to make money, you're looking to access something. Again, whether commercial lease, you can access brick and mortar space. Licensing.
A lot of companies, some of these are my clients. When they do a deal with their client, there's paper. They call it paper, right? Yep. Is it the prospect's paper or is it the seller's paper? And there's those documents. This is for the audience sake. I know you know this. I'm trying to draw this out. Is which is better? It depends on the side you're on, and how is it written? It depends on the side you're on, right? And who's going to review it? Well, it better be reviewed before anybody signs it.
Absolutely, and I know that's self-interested because I'm one of those people. But that's really and again, businesses and business owners that know what they're doing understand that it's best to bring in a professional. And could they figure it out themselves? Probably. But again, it's usually what gets you is not what's in front of you. It's what you didn't see coming. And without being a professional in that line, it just pay the professional, get it done, and then go to your highest revenue earning activities. If you're in sales, have a sale, go sell more. If you're in manufacturing, go make more stuff. And that's where we kind of come in to assist in making money. Another big thing is protecting liability, to make sure people don't take money away, and that's where we come in. And a lot of it is documenting and making sure that when parties understand, I'm bringing this in, you're bringing that, we're building this together. You're putting money in now, I'm doing here. This is how it comes out. This is what happens if something goes wrong. It's really, again, documenting the process and making the parties understand how things work. And again, God forgiven, if anything bad happens, then you kind of have the initial playbook of how to unwind, uncouple, and try to figure out a dispute.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've heard way more than me, but I've heard a few war stories of partnerships that are dissolving, and it's like a divorce.
It's a business divorce. Yeah. It is, and there's as much emotions as in it's a relationship. Again, it's a professional relationship, not a personal relationship, but still we have our egos. We've been slighted or perceived slights, and everyone will say it's the principle. And it can get brutal. And the worst times is when there's nothing there, because if there's a disagreement, again, no one's happy. But if there's a process there, you just start going through the steps. You do this, I do that. We figure out the value here. No one's really happy, but you're moving forward. And again, getting to a place where you're either getting rid of the assets or one's taking them from the other and the other's getting compensation, but you're moving past the pain point. And that's the goal. When you don't have paperwork, there's no process. You're stuck in the mud of really what the two parties want to do. And
so the old adage of never get into business with your friend isn't really true. It's don't do it without documenting things. It's don't do it without agreements up front. And you said a key phrase, I think. How'd you say it? About, you implied when things go bad, and they often do.
No one, when things are going well, no one looks at the paperwork.
Right.
They know how processes are going. Right. People are going out to lunch, smiles, phone calls of you're doing great. It's when, we're not making enough money as we thought we would, or things are moving slower. that's when you start looking at the paperwork to say, okay, what are my options here? And it's not the best place to be, but unfortunately it happens, and it happens with some regularity in business. Not everything is a success. There's failures, and then again, there's a whole gray area of might be failure, might be success, somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And again, completely self-interested, but having a process in place is smart planning. And again, you don't need to pay a ton for it. And again, it can be replicated. I call it institutional knowledge. The longer you work with a professional, the easier it is for he or she to assist. And that's really where we come in. Again,
so talk about
business.
Talk about the term outside general counsel for those that don't know what that means.
So in outside general counsel, it's really a term for businesses that have legal needs, but aren't going to ongoing legal needs, but aren't going to have an attorney on staff. It doesn't make sense from a need, from a price point, to have an attorney inside the business. So what you look for is, again, an attorney outside the business that, again, can provide that counsel with as much regularity as needed. So again, it's not that every Monday there's a call or a meeting. Again, there can be if the client needs it. Is that probably the best use of the time? No, unless there's a weekly first impression. But it's working. I call it the boomerang effect to an extent, is that you have the relationship, and when something comes up, that's the boomerang coming in. And hey, this is a matter. It could be something. Our commercial landlord sent us some paperwork to get looked at, or we've just had an employee quit and sent this over. It can be anything, but that's the come in. And then we usually will address it. If I can do it in-house, great. If, again, let's say it's an employment situation, I call employment light, but if, again, an employee files a lawsuit, we're not helping. So again, we'll get them to the right professional that will assist in that moment. And then again, once the matter is resolved, or maybe it's a contract situation, but it's done. And again, that's the boomerang zooming out, and maybe they come back a week, a month, 6 months, but it's really as needed relationship. But again, you have what I call institutional knowledge, which is, okay, this is why things are done, or this is
you're not starting all over again, understanding the whys.
Yeah, this is why we handle it this way, but this is why we're not handling it that way. It's that ability, which again brings, I'd say, a lot of value the longer it goes on, while costs get cut down.
So it's all those events that take place. It's all those transactions that might seem minor. Lease, right? That seems minor, but it's a lot of pages.
A lot of pages. And again, if you've got a personal guarantee and you're the owner, I mean, that means you're responsible for it just as much. Again, lease work we do is also with companies where there's what we call build outs. So it could be a medical practice, could be retail. But again, that's basically a construction agreement inside a lease. And again, you want to make sure it's going along the same time. And then also with that, who's paying what? Is the landlord paying fully for the build out? Are you paying 20%? They're paying 80%. If so, are you doing it at the same time, or is you're the first 20 and they're the last 80? Things like that matter. And again, paperwork's nerds, but that's what we look at, and that's what we do, because there's reasons for it. And it's always kind of the bodyguard of protecting the business and the business owner, that again, there's a cost of doing business and putting yourself out there, but making sure that you're aware of your risks and you're not taking more risks than you should.
All right. Believe it or not, we only have time for a couple of more questions. First, this is kind of a big one, but what are you most proud of in your career thus far?
Thus far, I'd say the entrepreneurial aspect and realizing, and again, I'm nothing special, but again, we're a professional service provider. We have to, the floor is providing good quality service. Beyond that, it's the business aspect of it. It's sales, marketing, growth. And that's been something in my career, and I'm focusing on now, again, of how to build a business in addition to being an attorney. And this business is a law firm. And that, especially the last couple of years, has been a great experience, a frustrating experience at times. But I feel like where I'm at now, in being able to build something, and again, more than just a book of business, but something that, again, there's others that are working here and along for the ride. Is that's what I'm proud of. Again, we're nothing yet, but we're hopefully going to build something in a little bit of our own model and see how it works.
Well, we're hearing good things. We are out of time. He's Nick Lipresti, N. Lipresti at liprestilaw.com or 617-351-4754. Reach out to him if you are a business in need of legal assistance, whether it's specific or ongoing. Nick, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
You're quite welcome. And thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. This is a show about business and business challenges. If you've got concerns about the sales effectiveness of your company, whether your sales team is you or small or large, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn at Winning Business Radio, or you can drop me a note. That's Kevin at winningbusinessradio.com. We are Winning Incorporated, part of Sandler Training. We say we develop sales teams into high achievers and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. We're not right for everybody, but hey, maybe we should have a conversation. That's up to you. Thanks, as always, to producer and engineer Juan. Thank you, Juan, for another job well done. Please be sure to join us next week, Monday, January 13th. My guest is going to be Katie Dustin, president of JED Insurance and Financial Services. Until then, this is Kevin Hallinan.
You've been listening to Winning Business Radio with your host, Kevin Hallinan. If you missed any part of this episode, the podcast is available on Talk4 Podcasting and iHeartRadio. For more information and questions, go to winningbusinessradio.com or check us out on social media. Tune in again next week and every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to listen live to Winning Business Radio on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Until then, let's succeed where others have failed and win in business with Kevin Hallinan and Winning Business Radio.